Daf Yomi, tractate Bava Basra, page 15b, top of the page, the words Ema, Kimisha, Shinichnasu, Yisrael, Mitzrayim, etc. The Gemara answers say that the Braita means that the duration of Job's life lasted as long as from when Israel entered Egypt until when they left, but not that he lived during that specific time frame. The Gemara raises an objection from another Braita against the notion that Job was a Jew. 7 prophets prophesied to the nations of the world, and they are Bilam and his father Beor, and Job, Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Namathite, and Elihu ben Berachel the Buzite. Basically, in Hebrew, it's Bilam ve'aviv ve'Eov, Eliphaz ha'temani, Bildad ha'shuchi, Zophar ha'naamasi, ve'Elihu ben Berachel ha'buzi. Okay, which indicates that Job was not Jewish. He said to him, and according to your reasoning that Job could not have been Jewish because he prophesied to the nations of the world, was Elihu ben Berachel not a Jew? Is it not written of the family of Ram in Job 32 verse 2, meaning Abraham? Rather, one must explain that Elihu was included in this list because he prophesied to the nations of the world, and so too it may be maintained that Job is included in this list, even though he is Jewish, because he prophesied to the nations of the world. The Gemara asks, but did not all the other prophets also prophesy to the nations of the world? Why then are only these 7 mentioned? The Gemara answers there, with regard to the other prophets, their main prophecies were directed to Israel, whereas here, with regard to these 7 prophets, their main prophecies were directed to the nations of the world. The Gemara raises an objection from what was taught in a different Braita. There was a certain pious man among the nations of the world, and his name was Job. And he came into the world only to receive his reward. The Holy One, blessed be He, brought afflictions upon him, and he began to blaspheme and curse. The Holy One, blessed be He, doubled his reward in this world in order to expel him from the world to come. This Braita states that Job was not a Jew, but rather a Gentile. The Gemara responds, the matter of whether or not Job was Jewish is a dispute between Tanaim, as it is taught in a Braita with regard to the period during which Job lived. Rabbi Elazar says, Job lived in the days of the judging of the judges, as it is stated in connection with Job, behold, all you yourselves have seen it. Why then have you become altogether vain? Job 27:12. Which generation was completely vain? You must say it was a generation of the judging of the judges, when the people judged the judges, as will be explained shortly. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha says Job lived in the days of Achashverosh, as it is stated, and in all the world were no women found so beautiful as the daughters of Job. Job 42:15, in which generation were beautiful women sought? You must say that it was a generation of Achashverosh. Okay, Esther chapter 2. But weren't there beautiful women in every generation? I mean, I don't see the strong proof there. But anyway, the Gemara asks, but why not say it was in the days of King David, as it is written, and they sought a beautiful maiden? 1 Kings 1:3. The Gemara answers there, in the time of David, they searched throughout the territory of Israel. 1 Kings 1:3. Whereas here, in the time of Achashverosh, they searched throughout the world, as is similarly stated with regard to Job's daughters. Okay. Rabbi Natan says Job lived in the days of the kingdom of Sheba. As it is stated, and Sheba fell upon them and took them away. Job 1:15. And the rabbis say Job lived in the days of the kingdom of the Chaldeans in the time of Nebuchadnezzar. As is stated, the Chaldeans formed 3 bands. Job 1:17. And some say that Job lived in the days of Jacob, and that he married Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. As it is written here, you speak as one of the loathsome women speaks. One of the loathsome women speaks. Job 2:10. And it is written there, in the account of the incident involving Dinah, he has done a loathsome act in Israel. Genesis 34, verse 7. This concludes the text of the Braita. The Gemara comments, and all these Tanaim hold that Job was a Jew, except for the opinion introduced with the phrase, and some say according to which Job lived in the time of Jacob, and he was certainly not one of Jacob's sons. And what is the proof that all these Tanaim maintain that Job was Jewish? And if it should enter your mind to say that he came from the nations of the world, there is a difficulty. After Moses died, did the divine presence rest any longer on the nations of the world? But doesn't the Master say Moses requested that the divine presence not rest again on the nations of the world? And his request was granted to him, as it is stated that we shall be differentiated, I and your people, from all the people that are upon the face of the earth. Exodus 33:16. And it is stated there that God acceded to his request. Acceded? Okay. I guess granted his request, I suppose. Rabbi Yochanan says the generation of Job was awash in licentiousness, as it is stated, Behold, all of you yourselves have seen it. Why then have you become altogether vain? Job 27:12. And it is written, Return, O Shulamite, return, that we may look upon you. Shuvi, Shulamit, Shuvi, V'nechazebach. Song of Songs 7:1, which teaches that the phrase "you have seen it" connotes a licentious gaze. The Gemara asks, but say that the phrase "you yourselves have seen it" signifies prophecy, as it is written, the vision of Isaiah ben Amoz, Isaiah 1:1. The Gemara answers, if so, why do I need the words, why then have you become altogether vain? Rather, the reference must be to inappropriate licentious gazing. And further, with regard to Rabbi Elazar's statement in the Braita that the generation of the judging of the judges was one of vanity, Rabbi Yochanan says, what is the meaning of that which is written? And it happened in the days of the judging of the judges, Ruth 1:1. This indicates a generation that judges judges. If a judge would say to the defendant standing before him, remove the splinter from before your eyes, meaning rid yourself of some minor infraction, the defendant would say to him, remove the beam from between your eyes, meaning tol kesam mi beinecha, tol koire mi beinecha. I gotta find this verse. Tal Mm-hmm. Tal kesam mi bein shinecha. Mi bein shinecha. Yeah. Tal kesam mi bein inecha. Tal kor mi bein inecha. Someone would if a judge would say to the defendant, remove the splinter from you, meaning rid yourself of some minor infraction, the defendant would say, remove the beam from between your eyes, meaning you have committed far more severe sins. Let's see here. Anyway, I was looking for that reference. Maybe it's not written in the. Okay. All right. If a judge would say to him, "Your silver is become dross," Isaiah 122, meaning your coins are counterfeit, the defendant would say to him, "Your wine is mixed with water." Isaiah 122, meaning you yourself dilute your wine with water and sell it. Since nobody behaved in a proper manner, the judges were unable to judge. Okay? The judges were unable to judge. Okay, Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani says, Rabbi Yonatan says, anyone who says that the Queen of Sheba, who came to visit Solomon, see 1 Kings chapter 10, was a woman and nothing other than mistaken. Was a woman is nothing other than mistaken. What is the meaning of Malkat Sheba? The kingdom of Sheba is mentioned in Job. And Sheba fell on them and took them away. Job 1:15. Having mentioned the book of Job, the Gemara addresses several matters relating to it. It is stated, now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and the Satan came also among them. And the Lord said to Satan, from where do you come? And the Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking through it. Job 1:6-7. The Satan said to God, Master of the universe, I have gone to and fro throughout the entire world, and I have not found anyone as faithful as your servant Abraham, to whom you said, arise, walk through the land in the length of it, and in the breadth of it, and I will give it to you. Genesis 13:17. And even so, when he did not find a place to bury Sarah before he purchased a burial site for 400 silver shekels, he did not find fault with your ways or complain about the fact that you had failed to fulfill your promise. And the Lord said to the Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a perfect and upright man, one who fears God and turns away from evil. Job 1:8. About this, Rabbi Yochanan says, that which is stated about Job is greater than that which is stated about Abraham. As with regard to Abraham, it is written, for now I know that you fear God. Genesis 22:12. With regard to Job, it is written, a perfect and upright man, one who fears God and turns away from evil. Job 1:8. The Gemara clarifies the meaning of the aforementioned verse. What is meant by and turns away from evil? Rabbi Abba Bar Shmuel says Job was forgiving with his money. It is the way of the world that one pays the storekeeper for even half pruta of merchandise purchased from him. But if somebody brought an item of such little value from Job, he would forgive him his half pruta. The Gemara continues to clarify the verses concerning Job. Then the Satan answered the Lord and said, does Job fear God? For not have you not made a hedge about him, about his house, and about all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his cattle and is increased in the land. Job 1:9-10. What is meant by you have blessed the work of his hands? Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak says anyone who took a pruta from Job was blessed. Not only was Job's own handiwork blessed, but anybody who received anything from him was also blessed. The Gemara continues with its explication of the verses. What is meant by and his livestock is increased in the land? Job 1:10. Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina says, Job's livestock breached the order of the world. It is the way of the world that wolves kill goats, but in the case of Job's livestock, the goats killed the wolves. The Gemara continues to relate the Satan's challenge to God. But now put forth your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. And the Lord said to the Satan, behold, all that he has is in your power, only upon himself do not put forth your hand. And the Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Job 1:11-12. The verses relate what then occurred. Now, there was a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house, and there came a messenger to Job and said, the oxen were plowing, and the donkeys were feeding beside them. Job 1:13-14. The Gemara asks, what is meant by the oxen were plowing and the donkeys were feeding beside them? Rabbi Yochanan says that this teaches that the Holy One, blessed be He, gave Job a taste, to be continued,